On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with Roger Burnett about building a Salesforce and building a brand. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and I am very excited to have another return guest. I'm always excited about a return guest because I feel like I haven't scared him off the first time. So this time we have Roger Burnett back. Now, Roger's the Director of Sales for Legacy Global Sports. Yeah, that's right. You're repping the brand. So, Roger, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me again, bud. If it means you didn't scare me off, it also means that perhaps I had something to offer. So,
yeah, exactly. Great point. So I read a blog recently that talked about you adding Salesforce, and boy, if anybody who's ever done that understands that there's some challenges to adding, and not only just one, but you added several. So I know that can be tough. So what are some lessons that you learned in that process?
I learned that I must be a glutton for punishment because you're right. It's difficult enough to add one new person, but I decided to add three. One is good, three must be better, I guess. I don't know, right? But we have a pretty aggressive growth plan for 2016, and I just knew there was no way I was going to be able to do it as an individual contributor this year. So, fortunately, I've got a great ownership group, and they were willing to allow me to have those dollars to invest in, bringing on some folks. So I'm grateful to them for giving me that opportunity. But, from a lessons learned perspective, what it's really reminded me of is, I think, you're in the same boat to a certain degree. We're individual contributors, but then we're also, kind of the stewards of the lives of the rest of the people who are working in the organization. And you have to be so much more prepared when you're serving that additional role, because if you sit idly by, you're not just losing productivity of your own, you're now amplifying that lost productivity by the number of people that you've not prepared. So I find myself having to be a bit more strategic in my thinking, and also I'm a lot further out in what I'm doing than I may have originally been when it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
So what it's also taught me too is that that whole concept of idle time being opportunity lost has taught me that I have to be real careful with my own time investment, right? So there's this natural inclination to revert back to taking care of the things that most directly benefit what you're doing. And in this instance, I actually do that at the peril of the improvement of three people all at once. And my own contribution is completely diminished by what their combined contribution might be if I'm successful in being able to get those messages across to them. So it's a lot to keep up with, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's funny too, because one of the things that recently I've really focused my energy on is trying to think about things that are multiplier activities. And so one of the things I've said is it's growing my sales team is a multiplier activity for sure.
Absolutely.
So that's a great point. And Legacy Global Sports is a relatively you're kind of creating the brand right now, right?
Within the space that we are. It's a new business division. It's only in its second year, and the message resonated in the marketplace. The value proposition was very well received. Mm-hmm. We had very significant success in the first year, which gives the ownership group the confidence to make the investment to grow the team, from this point forward.
Well, and I noticed that you're using as you grow the brand in that division, you're using social. So can you tell us some of the strategies or successes or whatever that how you're doing that through social?
It's probably the most fun part of what I'm getting to do, only because I have this opportunity to experiment and try things. And I've got my sum total of experience behind me up until this point to inform sort of what I think the strategies should be for an organization similar to my own. Mm-hmm. And this is my chance to apply those concepts in real life and see if we can achieve any semblance of success. So, it all starts with a plan. And, I've countless times heard you talk to people in this program about, kind of the elements of what that needs to look like. Mm-hmm. But from our perspective, from my perspective, the way I look at it is, my individual contribution last year was like me being a solo performer. I'm just a singer, right? But with the use of technology, I have the opportunity to be able to make my voice be amplified by the use of the different platforms as harmony, right?
Right.
So now I'm not just singing my own song, but I'm actually my own backing vocals and harmony. And they, if I'm doing it right, they should all be working in concert with one another to help, like you said, amplify the message of the brand, right? So we've been real purposeful in trying to develop what each of those platforms are supposed to be intended for, mm-hmm. and how we want to use them within the context of the overall story that the brand is supposed to be telling in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So if you visit my Instagram account, if you visit my Twitter account, and if you visit the Facebook feed, each of them is drastically different than the other one.
Yeah.
And this whole notion of not wanting to appear redundant is important to me, but I also, at the same time, I'll build bridges back and forth between the platforms so that if somebody finds me on one, there's opportunities for them to continue to hear the rest of the story through the other channels.
Trying to tell story natively.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really good. So what are some of the best lessons so far? Whether it's in all of this, whether it's through salespeople, whether it's through social, what are some of the best lessons you've learned in this new division, getting it launched?
I suppose depending on when you would approach me in this journey that has been the last 18, 16 months, whatever it's been, I'm sure that the lessons that I would say to you would probably be different along the way.
Totally.
But in this particular instance, I'm reminded of my old school sales manager who early on in my career said to me, when a salesperson fails, it's a failure of leadership.
Wow.
And what he said was either one of two things generally happens if a salesperson fails. It's either A, they didn't try, mm-hmm. which is generally not on the person, it's on their manager to get the performance out of them that they're capable of, or the organization didn't provide that person the tools that were necessary for them to be successful. Mm-hmm. And in both of those instances, it's a failure of leadership. Mm-hmm. So as I bring new people into the organization, I'm aware of that. And really what I think the difference for me in what I hope occurs here on their paths to success is that I cared enough to get right down to what are the exact things you need to do every single day in order to be successful, and hold those people accountable to those outcomes. And actually, but not in a managerial dictatorial kind of way, because I know why these people are working for me, mm-hmm. and what it is that they're trying to accomplish in their own lives. So everyone needs a reminder every once in a while to pick it up. Mm-hmm. And you have to have the courage and strength of conviction to be able to say to your people, I need you to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, not because I need to be successful, but because you said you wanted to get married this year, mm-hmm. right? And to me, that's if you don't get to that level of understanding of your people, if you don't care enough to want to know why they get out of bed in the morning, that's fine, but you can't be certain that you can have any impact on that person's ability to be successful on a day in and day out basis. Mm-hmm. When Cam Newton, when they won the NFC Championship before they went to the Super Bowl, if you go and find the speech that he gave in the post-game press conference, he says that the reason why that organization was as successful as it was last year was not because of the players, but because the coach just cared that much about the players. And, I work in a company that has sports in its name, right? So I very much take those concepts seriously about being a coach and, being invested in the success of each of my people within the organization. And the real lessons that I've learned in this instance is, if you're going to hire new talent, if you're not going to continue on this treadmill of what you and I see in the promotional products industry, which is we only hire people who have a book of business,
right,
then we're never going to attract millennial talent into this industry, because those people, you can't Google how to do this. You can't Google how to be a successful salesperson. You can't watch a YouTube video on how to be able to do these things. It takes actual knowledge transfer. And if you're not going to get down into the nitty gritty to be able to do that, and you think you're going to find successful millennials, I don't think so.
Boy, that last answer, Roger, that one dug deep. I really like that a ton. You can't Google how to do that. I'm going to quote that. For sure. I love that a lot. So you've answered my 3 questions. I always give everybody a chance to ask me one question. So I want to give you that opportunity.
Awesome. So it's been 18 months or so, right? Since you've been able to kind of look at what you've been doing. Mm-hmm. What quantifiable statistical analysis have you been able to put around, those 18 months and what have you been able to discern from what you're doing?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the first time we talked about this, and you sort of asked me, "Hey, what do you hope to gain from this?" Is that a fair assessment of what you asked?
Yeah, you said I don't know yet.
That's exactly was my answer. And what I would say to you now, after 18 months, is I'm starting to understand it. What I'm starting to see are, and we've talked about it. I do a lot of content. If there's anything I can say without being bragging or whatever, I create a lot of content. And so what I'm starting to see is the pieces starting to come together, whether it's from my blog, whether it's through this web show, whether it's through the weekly words or even the podcast. I think the evolution of the brand of Kirby Hasseman is starting to have an impact. Not only, okay, I'm going to have a book out or whatever, but I'm starting to see the impact on the business. And it's not necessarily through likes. It's not necessarily through views, but I think I'm starting to show up differently for my clients. And then, quite frankly, you talked about attracting millennial talent or attracting other talent to your organization. I think that's where it's starting to show up for my company, because I think, what happens is you start to show up over time as an expert. And I think that's what's starting to happen. I think, as Seth Godin calls it, the dip, right? You get, the first 10 episodes, everybody's excited, about 30 episodes in, you're going, okay, what's the, this is hard. And now I'm at like 75 or something like that. And I think I'm saying, okay, I'm really doing this. And I think what happens is you start to emerge on the other side. I don't know if it's quantifiable. I don't think it's numbers pieces, but I'm starting to see those pieces come together, and it have an effect not only on our bottom line. We doubled in sales last year, not only on just, overall brand, but those pieces are starting to come together now. And that's just the kind of thing that just takes time.
And it can't happen unless you had started 18 months ago.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's one of those things you always hear about. It's like, gosh, if you start today, the best time to start was yesterday. Second best is today.
I liken it more to the overnight sensation 10 years in the making.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Well, gosh, Roger, I really appreciate you taking the time today. Good luck. All right,
Thanks.
with the new brand.
Oh gosh, I almost forgot. I'm so sorry.
No, bring
Rod Bracewell, one of our 3 sales reps, got his first order yesterday. Congratulations, Rod Bracewell. How about that?
That's awesome. Nice job, Rod. That's fantastic, and I love that you celebrate it here. So I appreciate that. So, well, cool, man.
That means that at least one other person is going to watch this video, right?
I love it. Well, cool, man. That wraps up another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, but wait! Can you do me a favor? Please subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done it already, the way to do it's right over here. And hey, if you want to watch the last episode, check that out over here. Again, before you leave, subscribe!